With no transponder information, controllers were now asking the assistance of another plane heading to the West Coast that morning. It is United Flight 175.
I said, I'd like you to look at your 12:01 o'clock. Tell me if you see an American 767. And he said, yeah, he's about 28, 29,000.
The United flight that Hartling was speaking to had also taken off from Boston's Logan Airport, only 14 minutes after American 11. In fact, it was also a Boeing 767, fully fueled, bound for Los Angeles. It was carrying 58 passengers and 6 crew. Hartling had no way of knowing that 5 terrorists are also on board this plane, only moments away from making their move.
I said, well, turn 30 degrees to the right. I want to make sure I keep you away from this guy. Because I had no idea where he was going.
So you're still in touch with the pilots in that cockpit?
Yeah.
Now that the second United plane was safely back on course, or so he thought, John Hartling handed it off to the next link in the air traffic chain, the New York area en route center.
And you're keeping your eye on
American 11. He's still
now is going at a very high rate of speed.
No, his speed started to drop drastically.
And what did that say to you?
That he was probably descending.
Descending rapidly, headed in the direction of New York. Like the rest of us, controllers still had no idea where.
1980, contact New York Center 134.6.
At the New York en route center in Islip, Long Island, Dave Bottiglia, Kurt Applegate, and Mark DePalma are working a routine shift. No idea what is about to come their way. At 8:41 a.m., United Flight 175 enters Dave Bottiglia's airspace and makes contact.
The first thing he said to me was, we heard threatening transmissions being broadcast by the American.
The pilots of the United flight have monitored a transmission from the hijacked plane, repeating to Bottiglia what they overheard in the American cockpit.
And his exact words were, everyone stay in your seats.
The crew of 175 has no way of knowing they are only moments away from also being hijacked. By now, American 11 is crossing out of Boston's airspace and is bearing down on Bottiglia's territory in New York. Within seconds, the plane, or target as controllers call it, appears on his screen.
The controller right next to me gets up and walks over to me and he says, you see this target here? He says, this is American 11. Boston Center thinks it's a hijack.
So what did you think at that point? What was going through your mind?
I really thought they were probably going to Cuba.
So you kept track of the target?
Kept track of the target. And now of course, we know that he was descending at a rapid pace, but we had no altitude or anything on him.
So you didn't know how fast he was going down through the altitudes?
That's correct.
Within minutes, American 11 simply disappears from radar. It is 8:46 a.m.
The only thing I can remember is when the American target disappeared, all I said was, well, we know he's not high altitude anymore.
But within seconds, Bottiglia has another unexpected problem. As he and other controllers search the radar, looking for American 11, he suddenly notices that United Flight 175, which moments ago helped him locate the hijacked plane, also has disappeared. Instinctively, Bottiglia knows the two are somehow related. He asks another controller to take over all of his other planes.
I think my voice was shaking. Please just take everything and don't ask any questions.
He calls the United planes several times, unsuccessfully, sharing the same anxiety his colleagues in Boston had felt only moments earlier. Kurt Applegate is working at the next radar bank in the New York Center.
I could hear the talking behind me, and I realized he had 2 lost airplanes. That made me very nervous.
I know something bad's happening. I really don't know what. We had no transmissions from the United.
When I turned back to look at the radar, there was a target right over Allentown. So I turned and yelled to Dave. I thought that was his American that he was looking for.
But you're in fact are looking at United.
But I was in fact looking at United, that's correct.
A transponder signal quickly reappears on radar somewhere near the New Jersey-Pennsylvania border. A mistake, perhaps, on the part of the hijackers. The signal continues to transmit information to controllers. There is no longer any question in Bottiglia's mind that he's looking at a second hijacked airliner. The United flight is no longer heading west as it should be. Instead, it is turning ominously toward the east.
Well, when I saw it, it was at 33,000 feet. And as soon as I said that, he started to turn to the left and descending.
Did you continue to watch the United target move across the screen?
Yeah, I was just looking at this United flight as he descended through traffic. You know, I'll tell you what, it damn near had a midair.
For the first time, we're learning about a near mid-air collision. Applegate and Bottiglia showed Dateline how United Flight 175, streaking through the skies over New York at more than 600 miles an hour, barely missed colliding with another commercial flight, Delta 2315, en route to Tampa, Florida, from Bradley Airport in Connecticut. Applegate listens in disbelief as the controller next to him scrambles to move the other plane out of the way.
God, I heard stuff from him I didn't think I'd ever hear in my career, ever. The frantic calling and the traffic calls, traffic 2 o'clock, 10 miles. I think he's been hijacked. I don't know his intentions. Take any evasive action necessary. That's something you hear in the movies, not on the job.
It was a terrifying moment just to watch the two airplanes miss by less than, I think it was 200 feet.
United 175 barely misses a fiery mid-air collision, a crash that, while catastrophic, could have saved lives by keeping the plane from reaching its target, the South Tower of the World Trade Center. There are now 2 hijacked airliners in the skies over the East Coast. The first, American 11, has already disappeared from radar. Controllers don't know where it is. The second is United 175, now over northern New Jersey suburbs. And in Newark, New Jersey, a third plane and group of controllers will be pulled into the unfolding drama. Dan D'Agostino is a controller at the Newark Tower.
And if you look out that window there, they're all lined up just as we were on September 11th.
The morning shift is running smoothly, other than the usual ground delays at Newark.
We had about 25 to 30 planes at the runway at any given moment.
Greg Callahan is clearing planes to take off and land. Only 5 minutes earlier, at 8:41 a.m., he had cleared a United plane to take off for San Francisco. It had been waiting on the runway, and by the time it took off, it was almost 40 minutes late. At the time, Callahan had no reason to give it a second thought. But the story of what would happen on that airliner, the bravery and heroism of 33 passengers and 7 crew, would become legend. It was United Flight 93. But minutes after Flight 93 takes off, uneventfully, something does grab the attention of Newark controllers, whose view from the top of the tower is a panorama of New York's skyline. Working alongside Callahan is Rick Tepper.
I just happened to glance up and saw a mushroom cloud coming off the first tower. We knew it was an explosion type of fire. I said, Greg, look at that.
He was off my left shoulder, and he pointed out the window and said, look at the World Trade Center.
He's going, oh my God, look at that. So we were just standing there staring, just in disbelief, watching it burn.
The initial reports, a small private plane appears to have crashed into the tower. Bob Barcatapane was the supervisor in Newark Tower that morning, in charge of 8 controllers.
You could see the smoke from here.
Oh, yes, you could see the smoke billowing from the side of the building. And we didn't know what it was. We contacted LaGuardia, Kennedy Tower, and Teterboro Tower to find out if they lost an airplane. And they all said they didn't know what it was. I got on the phone to the en route air traffic control facility out in New York on Long Island, and I asked them if they lost any airplanes. And they said no, but Boston Center lost an airplane. They lost an American 767.
Did it occur to you at that point that it could have been that plane that went into the World Trade Center?
Well, that's exactly what I said to myself. I said to the controller that I have a burning building and you have a missing airplane. This is very coincidental.
As Bob Barcatapane trades calls with the New York and Boston centers, a horrific realization dawns on controllers. American Flight 11, still missing from radar, finally has been found. Word of the fate of Flight 11 quickly travels throughout the air traffic control world. Back at the New York Center, all eyes are now trained on United 175 as it races over central New Jersey, clearly headed toward New York.
I know that an airplane has hit the Trade Center, but we were still hoping that the United was not going to do that.
Until now, controllers thought, hoped, the plane was headed toward Kennedy Airport to land. But with each second, it is becoming more clear that whoever is in control of the cockpit of the United plane has a different plan. New York Center alerts another nearby air traffic facility, the one responsible for lower altitude planes.
I got a call from New York Center saying we have an aircraft at 24,000 feet. He's not talking to anybody. We don't know where he's going.
Don Kribalevi is on duty that morning. His colleagues, John Smith, John Riccardi, and Dean Jacopelli.
Probably 10 miles into my airspace, he started descending. I pointed him out to John.
And said, watch this aircraft. It's coming through. We don't know what's going to happen.
And we just watched him go down.
8:52 a.m. It has been 6 minutes since American 11 hit the North Tower, and NORAD, responsible for the defense of the North American airspace, is now alerted to a second hijacking. It scrambles 2 F-15 fighter jets from Otis Air Force Base in Massachusetts to potentially intercept the United plane. But they are more than 150 miles and some 20 minutes away. The rest of the country, watching on television, still believes the crash in New York is an accident. But these controllers, now watching in horror as the second plane bears down on lower Manhattan, are the first to know the awful truth.
We know he's going to crash. That's pretty much a given. We don't know where he's going to crash.
I think we all knew that something was going to happen, be it the Statue of Liberty, the Empire State Building.
It was highlighted to me so that I could watch it as it came in from the southwest and then made a direct turn towards the South Tower.
When it made that direct turn, did you think, oh my God?
I thought it was a fighter jet coming in to cover the city. As it turned out, it just continued to descend through 5,000 feet and lower.
And that's when my soup came up and said, you know, you could probably consider him a terrorist at this point. And you kind of just turn around and got this kind of empty feeling.
It was helpless. You couldn't do it.
Yeah. You know, you sit there for 10 years controlling planes. For the first time in your life, you don't have any control of this at all.
At Newark Tower, Bob Varcatapane is still on the phone with a controller at the New York Center and learns that a second plane has been hijacked and is almost on top of Manhattan.
He says to me, as a matter of fact, do you see that target coming over the Verrazano Bridge? I went over to the radar and looked at the radar. The Verrazano Bridge is depicted on the radar.
Right.
And I looked over there, and I saw the aircraft descending out of 4,700 feet, 3,600 feet, 2,700 feet.
But I could hear him calling on altitudes. I have a target in sight. He's descending rapidly. And he said, look out to the southeast. And the gentleman working ground control said, hey, who's that? By the Verrazano Bridge. And here comes a very large target, descending rapidly, very fast.
He was in a hard right bank, diving very steeply and very fast. And he, as he was coming up the Hudson River, he made another hard left turn and just heading for downtown Manhattan.
It was fast.
Very fast.
He was really moving.
He was moving fast.
Anybody in the room say anything at that point, or you just transfixed by what you were seeing?
Well, that pretty much confirmed all our worst fears as to if there's anything in the back of your mind saying maybe this just was something minor. Basically, there was a moment of silence, and then things really started to move.
You could see that he was trying to line himself up on the tower. Just before he hit the tower, he almost leveled it out and just hit the building. I was still talking to the center at that time, and I just said, oh my God, he just hit the World Trade Center. And you could see him go in the side of the building, and then you just saw the flames and explosion erupting out the other side of the building.
What was going on in this room at that time?
There was disbelief. They couldn't believe what we just saw.
They knew it was coming, but until they saw it happen with their own eyes, it was too hard to believe. As the second strike plays out on live television, the rest of the country is also in shock, finally understanding what these controllers already knew. America is under attack.